Tony Anthony is an American actor, producer, director, and screenwriter, best known for his starring roles in spaghetti westerns. In the early 1980s, Anthony wrote, produced and starred in Come On, At-Ya, and Treasure of the Four Crowns, the first film being largely credited with the short-lived revival of Hollywood's 3D action films. Early career. Anthony was born Roger Petito in Clarksburg, West Virginia. With his friend Saul Swimmer directing, Anthony and Peter Gale produced the half-hour children's short The Boy Who Owned an Elephant, narrated by actress Tallulah Bankhead. The three men would become his frequent collaborators. The film won a Gold Leaf Award at the Venice International Children's Film Festival. Following that short, Anthony and Swimmer co-wrote the Swimmer-directed independent features Force of Impulse, a Romeo and Juliet story about a high school football player who turns to robbery, filmed in Miami Beach, Florida, and Without Each Other. Anthony then moved to Italy to film Wounds of Hunger, which he co-wrote, and La Ragazza in Prestito. Swimmer had moved to England, where he befriended Alan Klein. Spaghetti westerns. Anthony was in Europe when Sergio Leone's westerns were setting box office records but had not yet been released in America. Anthony contacted Klein, then a major MGM stockholder, about co-financing a spaghetti western he was in, with Klein and Anthony both putting up $20,000 US. The film Klein produced was the spaghetti western A Stranger in Town, or Un Dollaro Tra Identa, starring Anthony as the stranger, a shotgun-wielding anti-hero who helps a group of Mexican bandits steal gold from the U.S. Army and federales, and then steals it right back from them. Released by MGM to compete with the United Artists' Clint Eastwood A Man with No Name film series, it became a surprise success and spawned 3 sequels in which Anthony reprised his role. With these films, some felt Anthony's persona was not the typical tough spaghetti western hero. The stranger was vulnerable and sneaky, with a sardonic sense of humor. Anthony recalled that director Luigi Vanzi constantly described the character to him as a bad guy, but you do good in spite of yourself. You're not Gary Cooper. You're not John Wayne. You're not the tall-in-the-saddle cowboy. You're the street guy. The audience can identify with you because you look like the guy that goes into movie theaters and says, "Well, I could be like him." Anthony himself described the stranger as a dirty coal mining cowboy. The second Stranger film, The Stranger Returns, that had a Golden Stagecoach as its MacGuffin and a Stelvio Cipriani score that had several cover versions by various orchestras. Anthony's willingness to experiment with the genre resulted in the third series entry, A Stranger in Japan, or Lo Straniero di Silenzio, or The Silent Stranger, with another Cipriani score. Considered by some the first East meets West western, predating Red Sun by 3 years. Its release was delayed for 7 years in the US due to a dispute with MGM, and never received a European release at all. Anthony later declared the film in his best and lamented the cuts that MGM made to it. His next film was Blind Man, a spaghetti western variation on the Zatoichi series. Unlike other Zapata westerns, featured the federales winning at the end. Anthony played a blind gunslinger hired to escort 50 mail-order brides to their husbands. By that time, Klein had become the manager of the Beatles, and Swimmer had directed many of their music videos and concert films. Both were producers on Blind Man, and their presence led to Ringo Starr accepting a supporting role as one of the bandits. Starr would produce Anthony's next film, which Swimmer would direct, a semi-autobiographical road movie called Come Me Together. In this film, Anthony plays an American stuntman working on spaghetti westerns in Rome. The film contains behind-the-scenes footage of a spaghetti western being shot, In 1976, long after the heyday of the genre, Anthony starred as the stranger for a fourth time in Get Mean, produced by Ron Schneider, a bizarre film that can barely be considered a Western at all. It instead takes place in Spain, where the stranger has to battle invading Vikings and Moors after escorting a princess there. It failed to find a wide audience. 3D years. In 1981, Anthony returned to the spaghetti well for Come At Ya, a 3D Western he wrote, produced, and starred in. In order for the film to receive a wide release, Anthony designed a locus projection lens which was cheaper than conventional 3D lenses. Anthony would star in one more 3D film, Treasure of the Four Crowns. Anthony next announced a 3D science fiction movie called Seeing is Believing, but with the 3D craze over, it could not find a financier and was never made. Later career. Anthony's last acting role was in Treasure of the Four Crowns. He went on to occasionally produce films, such as Wild Orchid and the spaghetti western Throwback Dollar for the Dead, and ran an optical equipment company that he said sold an estimated $1 million worth of lenses, up to the release of Jaws 3D in 1983. In late August 2009, Anthony announced he had taken the over and under 3D format of Come At Ya and converted it to digital 3D as a part of the film's reissue. Following an exhibition at Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas on September 25, 2011, the film was restored and digitalized for a 30th anniversary theatrical re-release and played in theaters throughout Texas starting on February 24, 2012. Filmography.